Grr, we go into this segment angry.
Grr, God, brr.
Roar.
Because we're talking about disconnected things that
Roar.
have nothing to do with this. But
Hey, real quick though, before we get corrected in the comments section, I did look it up, and it looks like while everything was transferred to Beta SP, Next Generation was shut on film, and apparently they do still have the negatives, and they're trying to go back to them. Some of them are not apparently in real great shape.
Okay.
And some of them are actually missing
I might have been
some segments.
It might
But
have
everything is transferred to Beta SP, and for the segments that are missing, they're having to just use the Beta SP and
been
upconvert.
misinformed then, or read it as they were coming from the tapes because that's all they had. For
Right, and then very well could have been for a long time, and it's probably that way for a lot of shows that maybe just because that would have been the process: is you shot it and you transferred it to tape, and then maybe you kept the film and maybe you didn't.
So important note
But
here.
supposedly there is film, so it would be a full high def transfer, and it would be
What you should take
worth
away
your
from this,
money.
kids, is that Cyrus is not always right. Please remember that when next time you decide to go off on a fucking huge rant against me.
And
for some
Be nice in
minor
the
point.
comments, because we corrected ourselves.
Here's the difference, though, is like when you figure out that you're wrong, you have no problem admitting it. And
Yeah.
there are a lot of people in this industry that will never, ever, ever admit that they're wrong. So
I appreciate it when people actually correct me in the comments in a polite way.
Yeah.
Actually, you're wrong, and here's the evidence of how you're wrong. That's great. No problem. Yes,
It's a learning experience.
because I learned something too. But if you're gonna come on and fucking be a jerk about it, be mean, spit,
Yeah.
oh, you fucking idiot, I can't believe. Look, just go away.
I'm always tempted to tell those people, like, you try covering as much shit as we do on a weekly basis and getting every single piece of information correct.
Oh my God! It's the point where you start worrying about your ability for your memory for day-to-day stuff work because you have to keep so much other shit in.
Plus,
there.
you need to understand that we are functioning alcoholics here
Oh,
doing this
right.
show. Come on. And speaking of functioning alcoholics, we're going to
This
talk
is
about...
Intervention for Brian.
Yes. Dude, I am way past that point. Your intervention is like the buzzing of flies to Prince Vigo.
So anyway, quick correction on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I
and
appreciate that.
We are back in. I think we're going to start with To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes.
We're going to start with a really great American movie called To Kill a Mockingbird.
Is that supposed to be Gregory Peck?
That's my Gregory Peck impression. I don't know. It needs work.
You know, you're trying to steal both my pun title and my worst impressions ever title. Wow.
Yeah. No, I will. I'm gonna fucking Joe Louis your ass and take both of those belts.
Well, Universal has recently come on their centennial, and so, man, that sounded terrible.
Yeah, it did. I'm like, they came on who?
They've happened upon their centennial, and as a result, they're putting out all of these really fancy editions that up at the top it says Universal 100th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
This in particular is a 50th anniversary release for the film To Kill a Mockingbird. And they're doing these in really nice digibooks with, the booklet of information, and a lot of times it'll have the Blu-ray plus a digital copy or Blu-ray plus a DVD. To Kill a Mockingbird actually has two separate digibook releases, I believe. One, I think the only difference is that it's a little bit of a thicker digibook with maybe some more information in there. And one comes with just the Blu-ray, and the other comes with the Blu-ray and a DVD, I believe.
In the full, yeah.
Right, exactly. And the thing is, if you're not familiar with To Kill a Mockingbird, this is one of the... When we say a classic, this movie really epitomizes a classic on a couple of different levels. It is based on a novel that you were all forced to read in school by Harper Lee, To Kill a Mockingbird, about lawyer Atticus Finch, who is defending... in the South, in the 30s, I believe, who's defending a black man accused of raping a white woman.
In Alabama,
In Alabama, he's basically the only lawyer in town who's willing to defend this guy.
Yeah, and he's the type of guy who regularly gets called on to do the unwinnable cases that are just because it's the right thing to do.
And it is important to note here that Atticus Finch is a white lawyer who is defending this black defendant accused of raping a white woman, which I can't even, rape is already a heinous enough crime, but in the 30s to be accused of that, and you're black and you're accused of raping a white woman,
yeah,
there's this amazing scene in the book that gets translated to the movie where a lynch mob comes to the jail demanding that Atticus just turn this guy over, like they're just gonna hang him, like no trial, anything, and he sits in front of that jail and refuses to let anyone in and refuses to leave. And he's a lawyer. He's not a sheriff. Like,
and the great part of that particular scene is that Scout, his daughter, comes up and is like, it's like the tension breaker. It's like, oh shit, there's a kid here. They're probably not going to do anything with the kid. But the way that Scout really like digs in is, you know, through childlike innocence, she just recognizes one of the men in the lynch mob as the father of one of her classmates, and starts talking to him like, hey, you know, how, I forget what the kid's name is. It's like, hey, how's little Billy doing? And the guy is instantly shamed because he has been individualized. He is no longer part of the group.
Yeah.
He has been pointed out as a person, and therefore the responsibility falls differently.
Right.
And as a result, the lynch mob kind of breaks up. It's like, oh,
And
well,
I feel
it's obviously not going to happen
I feel like in the
tonight.
book,
Yeah.
that was Harper Lee's attack against the Ku Klux Klan, because it's like you have a face and a name, and you're in a crowd, and you think that you can hide in this crowd.
Oh, yeah.
But this purely innocent child just like points
Sees
you out
things as they really are.
and says
Yeah.
your name, and suddenly you become an individual. You're not hiding behind any kind of anonymity.
And that's
Or any white mask.
And that's a
Right.
key to point out in any review of this, because the film is really viewed through the lens of Scout's eyes. It's a childhood look, an innocent look at this really fucked up situation that's happening here in this town, and the way these adults have grown to these extremes of hatred and prejudice, and their father, the way a child looks up to their father with admiration and yet a certain amount of confusion, because in this town he is, while respected, he's not being treated with much respect currently because he's made the decision
Right.
to represent this black man. And it all, of course, leads up to one of the greatest speeches in film history as Gregory Peck gives his closing arguments at the trial, which is stirring and moving and
Yeah.
has been repeated in so many times on links from YouTube articles to make a point.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those things that you have to see.
And it's also important to note, and I'm sure everyone knows this, but in case you haven't seen the movie or read the book, it's clear from the get-go that this gentleman who's being accused of rape is wrongfully accused, like
Yeah.
by a woman who had designs on him, was interested in sleeping with a black man, and came on extremely strong, and he rejected her, so she cried rape.
Yeah.
Like that's not a spoiler. Like that is something. That's the reason that Gregory Peck takes on Atticus Finch takes on this case, is because he knows this woman, and he knows how she is, and he knows that it's just not the way it went down.
This isn't Anatomy of a Murder or something like that,
No.
where there's a big third act twist coming up. This is Americana. It's a
Right.
slice of Americana. It's about it's very clear. Wears on its sleeve immediately that this guy did not do this.
Right.
And it's about that small town prejudice, and it's about what does it mean to be an American, and what does freedom stand for,
Right.
and all those things in a very simple and easy to understand story that has been affecting for generations of Americans afterwards. One of the interesting things that I got from watching the many documentaries attached to this was that Gregory Peck and the writer Harper Lee turned into very close friends
Yeah.
during and after the making of this, to the point where he actually named one of his children after her.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, what I find so interesting about it is that, it is weighty, it's emotional, it's a heavy film that deals with a lot of difficult moral questions, and standing up for what's right and doing, everything that you were saying. And despite all that, the subplot is like a haunted house movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's the local boogeyman,
Boo
essentially,
Radley.
named Boo Radley,
Which is
played by a very, very young Robert Duvall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Like, he looks like he's
Like
17.
ridiculously young Robert Duvall, and that kind of, obviously it's a secondary plot line that ties into the main story towards the end. And is at the same time also about doing what's right and prejudices and the way that we view people.
Symbolic reflection from the childlike viewpoint of the bigger story.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
but it's just interesting that this very classic film that a lot of people may think is stuffy is really not. Like, it's
Not
tied
at
in
all.
with kind of a classic horror movie.
This couldn't be more accessible, and even today, there's nothing dated about it.
And
at all.
that's what's so interesting. It's exactly what you were saying, is that it does deal with these really heavy issues, and it's possibly one of the most pointed arguments against racism made during a time when racism was still the standard.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very trailblazing film, and yet it's plucky and folksy, and it's so bizarre that you can find yourself just enjoying this just on the level of a little girl investigating a mystery in her neighborhood, and on top of that is this whole larger social message. And it's just it's an incredible movie for that reason, because it is so it has so much, social context to it, and yet it's still a fun movie to watch.
It's one of those rare films that, as great as it is, even the great films, like your all-time favorites, there's always something that you can pull out of it and go, yeah, that one little thing always kind of irritated me, because it was like, what was that? There is absolutely nothing to, if you'll excuse the pun, to nitpick about here. But true enough, regardless of the pun, it's true. Everything works, and there's a reason this is considered to be not only one of the definitive American novels that it's based of, but one of the definitive American films, and they treat it with reverence in this new edition.
The transfer is beautiful.
Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous, next to flawless.
Yeah,
I want to point out one other thing. We are fans of film first and foremost, and as a result, we love reading about film. That's kind of how I think we all got involved in writing about film, is just being fans of cinema. And one of our good friends, Mr. Drew McWeeny over at HitFix, has an incredible series he calls Film Nerd 2.0, where he describes watching and discovering films with his two sons, Toshi and Alan, who are like 6 and 3. And they sat and watched this new Blu-ray of To Kill a Mockingbird. And just reading through a child's response to the film. Now, he did say, the one thing that they didn't go into was that, obviously the kids asked what rape was, and they just said it was the worst kind of attack you could do to another person. So they kind of sidestepped that issue, but still, like, just the racism issue, and it's the type of thing where, Toshi is obviously in school and has classmates that are of other races, and they don't think about it. Like, it's not... Yeah. It's so foreign to them that they have a tough time understanding it as a plot point.
Yeah,
and it's a brilliant piece, and you should go over to HitFix and check it out.
Having to go and say how short a period of time this was, and how much longer after this is still going on. I mean, I remember being a kid in school, which I'm sorry, you can't make old age jokes. That's Leon's wheelhouse. He's the guy.
I think it was great they showed it to you in that one-room schoolhouse.
No, they were still like rampant racism when I was a kid going on, and not exactly some bumfuck backwater town either.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, there's still people using the N-word openly without fear, and like, and people sitting there taking it. It's like, Jesus Christ! And I was raised by really liberal parents who were like, never put up with that shit, But even so, it was very surprising to me that anyone allowed that sort of thing to happen. And the more we watch the news today, the more we see there's still places like where this film took place in Alabama, where that shit is still open and out there. The fact that like Drew's kids see it where they live and they go, that's crazy. Nobody acts like that. Be assured, it's important to show your kids that a movie like this that really understands what the core of racism is, because it very much is still alive today.
I mean, it sounds silly, but like we would be much better off as a country if more kids grew up with an idol like Gregory Peck in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's one of those, and I remember like when I saw it in school, like I was touched, like mostly by his performance, and watching it today.
Did you talk to an adult about that?
I showed him exactly on my heart where Gregory Peck touched me, and I still, like, to this day, it is, and it's so much more to me now, and watching it now, like it chokes me up every single time to hear him deliver that speech.
Funny, one thing I realized when I was doing my research for this one after the fact was that there's like a band named after almost every single character in this film. There really is. Like, there's the Boo Radleys. There's a band called Atticus. There's there's like it's so beloved that it has even crept into indie rock in those terms. Anyway, all right, so that is To Kill a Mockingbird.
Definitely one you should pick up.
Yeah.
Not only a great film, a great release by Universal, definitely one you should pick up.
So what do we got next on the list, Brian Salisbury?
You know what? Since we're kind of on this theme, I'm going to say that our next title we're going to talk about is Spike Lee's Malcolm X.
Okay, now this is another film that I had always heard was great and had never gotten around to seeing, mainly because I'm white. No, I'm just kidding. Totally kidding. I'm actually not the world's biggest Spike Lee fan.
I'm right there with you.
I thought Do the Right Thing was brilliant, and I mean to the point where I was just, electrified by it. It was so amazing. And so I went and I watched a whole bunch of his other films, like School Days, and I can't remember what was the one after Do the Right Thing. I can't remember now.
Girls Six?
Maybe.
Brooklyn?
No, that was still later.
I don't know.
No, that was way later. But I was like, oh wow, these are really not good. I don't know, maybe that was a fluke. And I never really went back to full-time watching his stuff again. And along the way, I just missed Malcolm X. Well, big mistake, because as several friends pointed out when I told them, hey, I'm going to watch this for the first time, it's fucking amazing.
It really is.
It is his masterpiece.
And I'm right there with you. I do not like Spike Lee as a filmmaker, mostly because he took one very basic idea militarized it and then used that to define his entire voice as a filmmaker, which is that, and don't get me wrong, I'm not blind to the fact that America is racist. Like, we've talked about that, I can't even tell you how many times, with talking about Josephine Baker.
We just said that.
We just talked about it with To Kill a Mockingbird. But I think that you lose some of the poignancy of your message when it becomes America's racist and all white people are evil.
Well, and Malcolm X is that one that addresses... It feels like it's almost like Spike Lee talking to himself about just that.
Exactly, and that's exactly where I was going with that, is that basically it's almost it's its own form of racism to say that white people are so racist that all white people are evil. It's like, Spike, you understand the problem there, the paradox you've created, and it doesn't seem like he ever did. However, with Malcolm X, he found almost like a new voice in this character, in this real historical human being who had that same idea, basically, and who was, famous for he was like kind of the opposite of Dr. Martin Luther King, where Dr. King was like, tolerance, and we're all going to live together, and nonviolent resistance. Malcolm X was like, white people are the devil, and we need to like militarize, and we need to rise up against them. And I mean, that is so much more, Spike Lee's avenue. And yet, you're right. He actually makes himself a character in the movie who Malcolm X is trying to preach to, and yet he doesn't come on board. Spike Lee's character doesn't come on board with it, which is such a fascinating scene to me, and almost like an acknowledgement that maybe the way he was approaching it was not the best way to do it.
Like, it's there's a Darwin quote that's been popping up again lately on various internet sites. It's something along the lines of the only successful species are those that learn to change and to evolve, and that's kind of like what his point is here, is like some of the most intelligent and fascinating people in history are those that were the least eventually dogmatic, that learned to change, that went, wow, I just found out new information that wasn't in my equation before, so I'm reevaluating everything based on this new information. Malcolm X's story is one very much of a incredibly intelligent, motivated guy who does go through a series of very distinct personality changes and whole philosophy and outlook changes in his life that ultimately, and sorry, spoiler, I mean, it was a real thing, ultimately kills him.
Yeah.
And even while he knows by the time it's at that point that, yes, he's going to die for it, but that change was the right change.
And in the interest of full disclosure, I will say I had no idea of the complexity of Malcolm X's upbringing and his background, and like the first half of the movie plays like a Harlem gangster film, for fuck's sake.
Oh yeah, where they're wearing crazy colorful zoot suits and walking in rhythm tandem.
And it's so bizarre. Like, for a while I was like, did I put in the wrong movie? Because I thought this was about the political activist Malcolm X. And sure enough, that informs who he becomes later, and it's a huge part of his history, and it's just, I had no idea. And one of the things I really like about this movie is, of course, Denzel Washington as Malcolm X. Like, I don't know, like, even when Denzel Washington's in a shitty movie and he's not working very hard, he's still the best part of the movie.
Yeah,
absolutely. And in this movie, he's nailing it on every conceivable level, and his performance is just mind-blowing. And I really like that. I really like the way it's shot. Like, there's some really creative angles that they take, and they really play with the foreshadowing of the gun. Like, it's a recurring theme, guns and gunshots.
You know how I just said that there's always, even the greatest films, one thing that you can pick out that still irritates you?
Yeah.
That's the thing in Malcolm X that irritates me.
Really? You don't like it?
It's a long film. It's 3 hours and 26 minutes. And he overuses that technique to the point where I wanted to smack him. I was like, now you're just being precious. Stop. I mean, there's this gimmick he does that he keeps throwing in gunshot sounds at inappropriate moments to remind you, he's gonna die! And like, okay, we know. You really no point in you continuing to beat me over the head about it.
I don't know. I feel like I'm already giving Spike Lee a lot of ground here as a director I don't like, but I mean it still didn't bother me. Like, even as somebody who doesn't particularly like Spike Lee, like that never really bothered me. But I do like. I think it's a fascinating story. It is a story about change on multiple levels, on a societal level, on a personal level. it's just a great fucking movie.
I would like to point out in terms of, and I agree with you, it really is. I mean, it's an important story to know about. I mean, African American history is just as important as white history to know about, and especially in the 20th century, when all the change was going on. And this is one of the key figures in that story that that they don't talk about in most schools. You're not going to get a Malcolm X class, but you should.
You should, yeah, definitely.
You know, and this digibook that they put out is, I think, the most attractive digibook I have yet to come across. I mean, I was super impressed. They've got this neat technique where they lay down this sort of like red, like laminate over parts of the pages that give it this neat glow effect. I don't know. It's really impressive. It's very glossy. There's a lot of information in it and timelines. I mean, and I wish y'all could see this, but there's just these beautifully laid out pages. Just as a work of art in and of itself, the digibook is just gorgeous. And it comes with another bonus DVD with a full documentary about the life of Malcolm X as well. So, I mean, if you're even mildly interested in the subject,
this is the release to pick up.
This sucker is an owner. No question about it.
Definitely.
All right, so that was Malcolm X, in case we didn't say.
Hey, racism is bad.
Yes, that's actually the pull quote on the back. Racism is bad. Racism is Spike Lee.
Thank you very much, Whitey.
Oh,
what?
Me and co-host are silver.
All right, so what do we got next, sir?
Well, why don't we go to another biopic here with Frida.
Okay, now didn't you say this was one of the ones you hadn't gotten around to?
No, I did watch it. I hadn't seen it before.
That's what I meant.
Oh yeah. This was new to me.
Okay, now Frida is by Julie Taymor, who is known more recently for being the original director of that Broadway disaster Spider-Man
Turn Off the Dark,
as well as being the director of one of my most hated music films, Across the
Universe.
I know some people love it. I fall on the what the fuck is this piece of shit.
So, Plus she was Catwoman on the 60s Batman show. Oh wait, no, that's Julie Newmar. Never mind.
And this is based, of course, on the real life Mexican artist
Frida Kahlo.
Mm-hmm. And if there was ever a role that Salma Hayek was born to play, as she herself intimidated many times before they even made the film, it's this.
Yeah.
Where she plays this woman who, from the age of 18, she gets in a traumatic accident where she is impaled with a metal spike from a bus that she's riding on, a metal pole, and it affects the whole rest of her life with constant pain, occasional points where she just can't move around all that much, but she refuses to let it change anything, nor does she let the fact that she's a woman in a time that was still very, male oriented, affect the fact that she wants to be an artist. She ends up getting inspiration from Diego Rivera, who's a very famous Mexican artist played by Alfred Molina here, and she doesn't just get inspiration from him, she gets deep dicking as well.
Yes. All right.
Because Diego Rivera was a famous womanizer, and while she even knows that early on, she's like, I don't care. I'm the one. He can fool around, but he'll still come home to mama.
Yeah, that was basically their deal. Yeah,
that was exactly their deal.
And she had plenty of fun on the side herself.
She did have plenty of fun. Well, she was bisexual, at least according to the film. I've heard there's still a tiny amount of back and forth on that.
And it's interesting because this is one thing that wasn't delved into on the Josephine Baker story that we talked about. Yeah. But Josephine Baker's son put out a book about her that said, in no uncertain terms, that Josephine Baker and Frida Kahlo were a couple for a while.
Right, and that Josephine Baker was very openly bisexual as well.
Yeah.
It was just as many women as men. According to him, yes, Frida Kahlo as well was easily swung both ways. She was certainly a swinger in the party 20 style. Let's go out, have lots of parties, drink tequila all night long. I mean, this girl partied harder than the League of Extremely Ordinary Gentlemen.
Who are working hard to bring the 20s back. I mean, that's pretty much our whole design.
I'm just working hard to fuck Salma Hayek.
There you go.
Oh my God. And even though she's playing a woman whose eyebrows connect together, which is, Frida Kahlo, she wasn't an unattractive woman, but if she had shaved those eyebrows, that would have made a huge difference.
And it's funny because they really do go to great lengths to make Salma Hayek ugly. And even when they try to make her ugly, it's just like, I would still fuck the shit out of her.
It doesn't help that she's taking off her clothes and having sex with people a lot in this film.
Indeed.
A goodly amount,
If
we'll say.
if you want to see Salma Hayek naked, this is the definitive Salma Hayek naked film.
Yeah. There's a healthy amount of sex in this movie.
I mean, that,
Look, masturbatory things aside, though, it is a fantastic film. I was really, really impressed with this film.
absolutely, and a lot of that belongs not just to the actors who do a terrific job, are impassioned about these characters that they're playing in their history, but the direction by Tamor, who does this incredible trick where she constantly fuses life and real life stuff in and out from the paintings of Frida Kahlo to them just mutating into the real life, the actors, where at points it's unclear if you're looking at a painting or you're looking at the actors with just makeup made on to look like it. I mean, there are points where you're like, oh, that's a beautiful painting, and then the characters in it start moving, and you're like, ah! Jesus.
And it's great
really,
because
really cool.
they bring in other mediums too. Like there's this whole sequence about when they go to New York that basically turns the movie and their life into this weird affectation of King Kong.
Yeah.
And it's a fucking brilliant sequence.
Super
It really is.
Really experimental stuff all throughout this movie that does, unlike Across the Universe, which, like I said, personal opinion, but unlike that, works.
It totally does.
completely intrinsic to the story.
Because there's an emotional connection to what's actually happening within their lives at that time. Like when they go to New York and they basically the movie becomes King Kong with Diego Rivera, as it's because she feels like he's gotten so big in New York that he's become this monster. So it is totally informed by what is happening in their life. It's not just because, it'd be funny to do King Kong here.
And it doesn't just cut to it either. It's she is alone because he's out doing his thing, and so she goes to the movies to see King Kong. And so it cuts from footage of, the original 33 King Kong film to this, dream sequence that she's having. It's a daydream. It's a filmed daydream that works.
And
Absolutely.
a lot of people don't realize some of Frida's more well-known works are not as surreal as the stuff she was actually probably made up the brunt of the majority of her work. I mean, her stuff was pretty strange and a lot of heavy duty, almost like Dali-esque symbolism at points. Really, just put through a very Spanish filter.
Right.
And this gets a lot more into that type of work, and you understand it. That's the best thing about this that I can't even say for a lot of other artist biopics. It makes you understand why she painted the way she did, what the meaning of her paintings were, without ever being didactic about it or...
No, it's never preachy.
Yeah, exactly.
Not once.
Yeah. This is a terrific little film. I'm really grateful that it got put out on Blu-ray because it really deserved to. And once again, in case I haven't said it enough, Salma Hayek's boobs are glorious and reason to stay alive.
Indeed. And the thing is, and this is going to sound egotistical, and I don't mean it to, but what impressed me so much about this movie is that I didn't know anything about Frida. I didn't know anything about Diego Rivera. It wasn't a story I was particularly interested in, and yet it still grabbed me. This film spoke to me as someone who didn't really care about the subject material, which is really high praise for a biopic, I think.
I didn't even really know who Frida Kahlo was until I saw this film originally. It's like I knew she was an artist, and that was about the extent of it.
Exactly.
And now I am a fan. I want refrigerator magnets with her art.
There you go. Because that's what she was aspiring to all along.
Well,
Nice.
I'm sure she wouldn't have been completely displeased.
No. Indeed.
Yeah. Great film.
All right, so that was Frida. What do we got next?
You know what? Why don't we go to the animated side of things and talk about Disney's latest classic film they've re-released on Blu-ray, which is Lady and the Tramp.
The Lady and the Tramp. Now, unfortunately, this does not have Charlie Chaplin in it, so I was very disappointed.
It does not have Charlie Chaplin. He is not the tramp in question.
Boo.
What?
Sorry, I said boo.
Oh, okay. No, we're done talking about To Kill a Mockingbird. We're talking about Lady and the Tramp now.
Oh, not Boo Radley.
Oh, okay. So this is a 1955 film, back when Disney was still in its absolute heyday. When, for my money, and this is, keep in mind, I am a Disney fanatic. I grew up watching all of these movies when they were released on those big clamshell VHS.
Yeah. It's like I grew up watching them when they came with their third theatrical re-release.
Oh, that's adorable. You're so old.
Not the original one, so.
Right.
Yeah.
But basically, I love the classic Disney films, but for my money, there was a period in time when they could not fail. they kept putting, like, their animated stuff was consistently great.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that Lady and the Tramp is just another example of that.
Oh, yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, it's considered to be one of the minor films of that great, the golden age of Disney animated features, but even the minor films were really fucking great.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah, and it's always interesting to me because, like, it is. Like, it's not... You don't talk about Lady and the Tramp with, like, Sleeping Beauty and Snow White and even Lion
Cinderella
King and stuff like that. But, Sleeping Beauty was far and away my favorite as a child, but I think my second favorite was Lady and the Tramp. Like, I just loved this story and thought it was so funny and well done, and... you have the song that the Siamese cats sing that just gets stuck in your brain, and
Which is only mildly racist.
And,
it's
it's a classic and familiar romance story of the guy from the poor side of the tracks, but who's just a good guy who ends up attracting the eye of the hot rich
It's
chick.
basically West Side Story told through dogs. Like, it's a very strange kind of situation where it's just like, okay, she's really well off, and he's just this dude from the other side of the tracks, and, well, by dude, I mean dog, and and it's a really sweet little love story.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that it sounds so, so sugary, but I've seen so many Disney and other animated films of late that try to tell stories using animated, anthropomorphized. I've been drinking.
That's okay.
Anthropomorphized.
Keep
Yes,
going.
animals, and they're just not good at all. Like, they're too silly. They don't have a lot of heart, and it's just all about the novelty of seeing animals talk. And in this movie, it's not at all. It's a really sweet little love story, and the fact that the animals are talking is not even really a big, like, the humans don't know that they can talk, and it's just like, it's only there for our benefit so that they can communicate with us, and it's not a gimmick. It's just part of the story.
And this is, being another Disney animated release, is treated, with huge respect. Mad props by Disney. Mad props to Disney, to the way they keep consistently putting these things out where they're just flawless. They look as great as HD can put out. The sound is up to par for the best speaker system you could possibly have out there. It's terrific, and it's just loaded down with bonus features, for that matter, like new HD bonus features.
Yeah.
I mean, what else is there to say about it? If you're a Disney
impeccable.
fan, if you're
Just
a Disney
an
fan,
impeccable transfer.
you
It
really
looks
have
great.
to own it.
And it has one of Disney's very best songs from an animated film, which is the
I Don't Care About You, Fuck You.
no, the beautiful
Really?
night, Bella
Thought that was this one.
Bella Noche.
Yeah.
Where it's the scene where, of course, the famous scene where the two dogs are eating the plate of spaghetti. It's adorable.
Oh, right, of course.
Yeah.
And plus it makes me want spaghetti.
I'm so hungry right now. We really need to wrap this
Spaghetti.
up.
So let's move on. What's next? That was Lady and the Tramp, ladies and gentlemen.
That was Lady and the Tramp, ladies and
But
tramps.
I think we're in the lightning round now, so let's just move this sucker along with the lightning round!
The lightning round! Okay, in that case, we're going to move on to something slightly less good than Lady and the Tramp, which...
what could that be?
The Double, which is its own Lady and the Tramp story of Richard Gere and Topher Grace.
Is it really its own Lady and the Tramp story? I'm trying to... How you arrived at
I will
that.
tell you exactly how, because Richard Gere looks like he hasn't bathed in a while, and Topher Grace is basically a sweet little girl.
Okay.
I'm in.
Apparently, food isn't the only thing you're missing at this point.
Well, and the plot's not the only thing that the Double's missing.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
not. The story here follows FBI agents who are looking for a mysterious assassin that we find out very quickly is in fact one of the agents who is looking for him, played by Richard Gere, who improbably, even though he's been working for the CIA forever, is also a highly placed, totally the world's most dangerous guy sort of thing, Russian assassin. It makes absolutely no sense how these two things could coexist. The film just asks you to go past that major thing that you have to get past.
It's got
and
so
believe
many
it.
cliches strung together that you're right. At some point, it focuses more on making the movie as cliche as possible instead of making it plausible.
Yeah.
And you'll know from the first scene when they call Richard Gere in and he meets Topher Grace and they have like the old guard, new kid back and forth. That's so bad and gets to the point where it doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
And you're just like, this was clearly like written by someone who has seen a bunch of action films and thought that all they had to do was sit
It's-
down with Word and
It's a classic
and type
example
one out.
of the difference between homage and someone who sees something and just repeats it without knowing how it works. Because they're totally, in that early scene where Richard Gere meets Topher Grace, they're just cribbing it from The Hunt for Red October.
Yeah.
Where it's like, where, Jack Ryan is brought in as this, like, dumb analyst kid nobody wants to listen to, and then he speaks up and he has something to say. But in this movie, it's like, well, we need to tell the audience that he's an analyst at least 4 different ways.
Yeah.
So on top of saying that he's an analyst, have him speak analytically, they literally have him holding files and notebooks.
All right, so yes,
We
Topher
get it!
Grace is the new kid brought in to work with the reluctant Richard Gere, who in that meme, in that thing we've seen before, it would be, they end up working together and they track down the killer, and so they go, but this is different because one of them is the killer.
Holy shit!
Yeah, which as a third act reveal would have been even lamer.
Yeah.
As a first act reveal, it's just like, well, now how are you going to make that work? And sure enough, they never really do. If there's anything good to say about this film, it's that Topher Grace surprisingly was convincing in his physical action scenes. There's points where they have him actually hand-to-hand fighting, and I was like, wow, I actually kind of bought that. And that was
Which is good, because,
last
like, in
thing
the
I would've
scenes when he's
expected.
just delivering dialogue, I was like, why the fuck did anyone give you a leading man job? Like,
Yeah. No,
I like Topher Grace. I do. I like him in very small doses, though.
I do. I'm the same way. Like, he's a great supporting character type of guy.
I really liked him in the Oceans movies, where he's basically just mocking himself.
I
but
feel like the only reason he took this was to prove that he can be in an action movie. And I'm like, you know what? No one believed it after Venom, and I believe it even less now. Even though, like I said, you're obviously trying. You took some martial arts classes. You're not incapable of that. You just don't have the right kind of charisma for it. And
Or face. I mean, he's
Yeah.
just a baby-faced little kid who's always going to be best in nothing comedy.
And the film is plagued partially by that fact that that's unavoidable, but also, like I said, it's just so ridiculous. And there is a third act twist that makes the first act twist seem completely
Not
plausible
to mention that it's a
and
twist that
believable.
goes nowhere.
Yeah.
It's just like, aha! Okay, now what? I don't know. I guess that's it. It's just like, okay, but that doesn't do anything for us.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just there's no real reason to see this. There's nothing new except for things that don't work at all and are completely absurd, and
Yeah.
not in a funny way, in a exhausting way.
Exactly. It's an exhausting movie.
But-
I completely agree.
That's the double, and since we're in the lightning round, we're just moving through. So what's next?
Speaking of things that were
lightning master.
speaking of things that were exhausting, I think we should move on to Dreamhouse.
Oh boy.
Oh, Dreamhouse. Oh boy.
Well,
Speaking of twists that don't make sense.
Well, Dreamhouse has a lot of weird little things like that. I don't know if you even call them twists, just story elements. But you go ahead and talk about this one. You saw
So-
it more recently than I have.
Yeah,
so.
Dreamhouse is a movie that stars Daniel Craig and Rachel Weisz as a family that moves into a new house, and immediately after they move in, their daughters start seeing things. They start hearing little whispers that the house apparently has a history. They start looking into it more deeply, and it turns out there was a guy that murdered his whole family that used to live in the house.
Amityville Horror.
What?
Amityville Horror.
Amityville
first
Horror. And so basically, as Daniel Craig keeps delving deeper and deeper into this mystery, he finds out that there was a guy that killed his whole family. The guy did not die, was apparently shot in the head by his own wife before she died, and was remanded for temporarily to an asylum and is now out. So it's like, oh, is he going to come back?
Yeah.
Is he already
Are we
back?
seeing this person? It looks like maybe this guy is stalking the family and
Yeah.
trying to come inside the house.
Yeah. Let me just say this right off the bat. I'm not going to spoil it here, but the trailer for this movie spoils a twist that comes about halfway through.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm hypersensitive to spoilers in trailers. I hate them.
Yeah.
I hate the way that trailers are cut now, where it's just like, here's the whole movie. You're going to see it anyway. Fuck you. I hate that shit. However, I recognize that can sometimes cause me to be a little bit sensitive about spoilers, and sometimes what I think is a spoiler isn't really a spoiler. This was totally a fucking spoiler.
There was no reason to give away the major midway through the second act plot twist that changes the whole nature of the film that they did. In fact, I suspect I might have actually kind of liked this movie if it wasn't for the fact that I totally knew that was going to happen.
And then what
ahead
they
of
do
time.
to compensate for that is they put two smaller twists at the end that are just like, okay,
Well,
I guess.
I can say that to a certain extent, I never hated this movie. I did not. I, at worst, kind of disliked it. For whatever, like, kind of namby-pamby, mediocre assault on it that is. But when it came to those final twists at the very end, I was like, okay, now you're just not even trying.
Yeah, I find the whole thing remarkably lazy. I think it's one of those situations where a movie starts with the twist and the writing process, and then they build the movie around the twists. and the stuff that's built around the twist is not engaging. There's not a lot of character meat to delve into. There's nothing really much here. And then the thing one of the things that bothers me right off the bat is that Daniel Craig is not supposed to be British, but his American accent is terrible. Never
it's one of the worst. It's the worst since Michael Caine did an American accent. Seriously, It's so bad. It's irritating.
At one point he says, "Oh, there were some kids messing about."
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not even something an American would say.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that, because when we originally reviewed this, the other guys were like, what? I didn't even really notice that as much. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? It was absolutely atrocious the way his accent was coming in.
It was going in and out. It was just like, let him be British. If he can't do an American accent, there's no reason this character can't be British.
Yeah.
Just let him be fucking British.
Yeah, it was just pointless to do that. Now, and you've got... All right, first off, look, you're married to Rachel Weisz. Hey... Relax. It's pretty
down.
good.
Things are going well for you.
I don't know. Anyway, it's a very lesser film. If somebody was to say, oh, I kind of liked it, I wouldn't be able to go on them and say, oh, you're an idiot. I mean, I don't think it was a dumb film. It was a badly handled film. I thought it was a good story that was just ham-handedly executed.
I think at its best, it's a story. It's three different stories we've seen before, strung together by really lazy twists. And it gets my ire up just based on that trailer. I could not believe, sitting in that theater, seeing that trailer, that they would just blatantly spoil that. I couldn't believe it.
But the family's last name is Attenton, so you should pay attention to the plot.
All right, that was Dreamhouse.
That was Dreamhouse, which sucks ass.
There you have it.
What's next?
I want to do a good movie now.
What's coming next?
Do we have those?
We don't have a lot of good... You know what? Let's talk about the piano.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to apparently disagree on that one then, I guess.
Why?
Because I didn't really care for the piano.
And I didn't see it.
I know that, worldwide, I am in the exception, because the piano, this 1993 film about a mute pianist and her daughter, set in the mid-19th century in New Zealand... was universally popular.
Well, at least there's going to be orcs in it, right?
See, that's what I thought. No orcs.
What?
Yeah,
it's called The Piano. It's set in New Zealand. There's no fucking orcs.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Come
no
on.
Orcs, no dwarves.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
No rings.
No rings?
Yeah.
God damn it.
This stars Holly Hunter, who is this woman who is, at some point, I don't even think it ever really explained where her daughter came from.
Probably her vagina.
Well, okay. Outside of that,
mark one down.
Who the father was, because she's been mute since she was a child, and even the movie says, yeah, it's unknown why she's mute. She just one day stopped talking, and even she doesn't know why she doesn't talk anymore. But she has a daughter played by Anna Paquin, who both of them actually won an Academy Award for their performances here. Holly Hunter, I get. Anna Paquin, maybe not as much. But she gets married off to a rich landowner in New Zealand, played by Sam Neill.
Who is required by law to be in any film made in Australia or New Zealand.
Yeah, I think so. And they are having a trek through the mud just to get to this little shack that he's basically built out, is cutting out of the wilderness there, with the help of a lot of the local tribesmen, the Maori, and one Englishman who has sort of integrated himself into the Maori tribes, played by Harvey Keitel. I mean, integrated to the point that he's got the facial tribal tattoos and everything. Now, Holly Hunter ends up forming a strange relationship with him when she keeps insisting that he take them back to go to the ocean where they first came, appeared in miles from the home, where they had to leave her piano. That was kind of her way of or her one way of expressing herself. She's obsessively plays the piano. And he ends up paying the tribesmen to bring it back to his house and saying, oh, I want piano lessons. At which point he coerces her, all but rapes her, into having sex with him.
Goodness, Harvey Keitel.
It's one of those things that I guess I could see that people thought was romantic in a weird sort of barbaric...
In that way that rape is always romantic.
Well, he doesn't hold her down, but he's blackmailing her into one, oh, now show me your boob. Okay, now take off your clothes and lie on the bed next to me. And with her own piano. And it's supposed to be romantic, and all I got was, okay, this is really fucking creepy, and please stop showing me Harvey Keitel's penis.
That guy is all dong.
The dude loves to show dick.
He does.
Come on.
He's really
Bad Lieutenant.
I don't know. I mean, this is Jane Campion, which I'm not the world's biggest fan of anyway, but It's beautifully shot. There's no question about that. There's some gorgeous, gorgeous cinematography in this film. There's some beautiful soundtrack stuff going on as well. But I could not get into the story even a tiny bit. I was like, he's a dick, first off, who is like a rugged, kind of a redneck, really. She is a complete bitch. She's like totally stuck up. She treats absolutely everybody like shit. She's ungrateful to everyone for anything they do. Even the little kid is just a tattletale. She's like, why? There's no one to like here. Why am I supposed to like or care about what happens to these people? All right, so
you couldn't like it when the dinosaurs showed up?
No, that I would have liked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I totally would. If they had thrown Anna Paquin into the fires of Mordor, then I probably would give this movie a full rating. But that is not what happens. In fact, like I said, there are moments here that I get. Okay, it's an Oscar type of film, and that was a cool moment. But overall, story-wise, I was just bored out of my mind watching it. And I'm not the kind of guy who's bored by a film just because it's a romance story. This one bored me.
It's funny because I imagine the image of a piano on a beach, and all I can think of are those pretentious Calvin Klein commercials. Like, and that will forever
Fabio comes up riding a horse.
Be burned into my brain as just art school bullshit. Like piano on the beach. That's great.
I don't know. It feels I don't even know. I mean, maybe it was it's written by Jane Campion, so I don't even think it's an adaptation of anything. It just.
Adaptation of her sexual fantasies.
Yeah,
it's an adaptation of that Calvin Klein commercial she saw.
It's a very arty version of embarrassing sexual fantasy. Really, is what it feels like. You know, like a story of O, but done in a much more restrained fashion.
Wow.
God, if only someone would rape me on my piano.
Well, speaking of
that would be key to the situation.
Oh, that struck an ill chord with me. So
that was the piano.
Speaking of, yes, that was the piano. And speaking of awkward sexual fantasies, I want to talk about A Very Harold and Kumar Christmas.
Hooray!
All right, I will say this right now. I was not a big fan of the first two Harold and Kumar films, even as an ex-serious stoner, and I mean serious stoner. I was a Harold and Kumar stoner when I was a kid.
Wow.
That's been a kid was a long time ago, let's be fair. But this one fucking floored me.
Yeah,
it's great.
I love this. This is one of my favorite comedies of last year.
You feel like a crazy person when you recommend a movie called A Very Harold and Kumar Christmas 3D to people, but it's like, okay, and I will say this, I'm a big fan of the first one. To me, the first one feels like, and I'm sure this is a chestnut that a lot of people have said, but it really did strike me as like a stoner version of a Bob Hope, Bing Crosby on the Road movie.
Yeah.
And the second one, I didn't particularly like because I felt like there was a unique balance struck in the first one of crude humor and some smarter jokes and some better character stuff.
Yeah.
And I felt like the second one was just crude humor. And this one, I feel like, got back to what was good about the first one and really made first of all, it has the benefit of having its own established canon at this point. Yeah. It has had 2 movies to establish its rules and its characters, so by the time we get back to this franchise, we know these guys, and frankly, I like these guys. So,
and I think what's great about this, and Brian and I went back and watched the first 2 films, and the only thing I could say was that it made it painfully obvious that the third one was far and away the best of them.
This is true.
Way superior.
It really is. I'm with Brian. I like the first one. The second one suffers, though. I kind of like the W. Bush stuff. But the third one is grown up. Like it's the matured version. I can't say this for sure because I haven't seen it since it came out in theaters. But I want to say that there's almost no potty humor, or if it is, it's like
it's there. It's just way played down by comparison.
Yeah, like it's not nearly as like.
You know what's funny is most of the toilet humor is expressed by a child in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Which is an interesting kind of
because there's
statement about itself.
There's a subplot there where there's a little girl who ends up by, and I know this sounds horrible from the outside, but it works inside of the context of the film, that keeps accidentally taking lots of drugs. And she's a toddler.
Yeah.
And so she's at one point she's all stoned, and then later she's totally coked up, and then she's on ecstasy. And like, there's no way to take this film as anything but a complete absurdist fantasy. I mean, at no point do you ever feel like they're trying to say any of this could really happen.
To the point where they actually stop the movie and have a Rankin and Bass Christmas claymation segment,
is so fucking
and is
great.
Easily one of the best parts of the movie.
Oh yeah, there's so much to like here. Although the best thing in the movie is indeed the Neil Patrick Harris. Which was the best part of the previous 2 films.
Which is kind of a spoiler, but he's back.
He's going to be in every single one of these. I mean,
he's on the poster.
He's on the poster. All right, so clearly he didn't die.
Even his final line in his film scene in this film is, "Hey, I'll see you in the 4th one."
Yeah.
I mean, they're like that self-aware that that's always
Now,
going to be a thing.
yes,
And
And-
go ahead.
Speaking of self-aware, since the second one has come out, of course, Neil Patrick Harris has also come out
Yeah.
that he is gay. And what's awesome about the third one, and being self-aware, is it works that into the plot
Yep.
without betraying who he was in the first two movies.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly what I was going to say. They acknowledge that, and they run with it as a joke, and it's great.
It's almost genius, really.
All right.
The way they play it out and make it work as a joke. It's
we
so
can't
funny.
we can't talk about this film without mentioning Wafflebot.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
Wafflebot is maybe the greatest invention of all time, and as we were staying through the credits, Brian and I noticed there was actually...
Wait, first of all, Wafflebot is just a robot that keeps showing up in the plot, who literally his only function is to fucking make waffles.
So what's wrong with that?
And there's nothing
so
wrong with it, and everyone
fantastic.
should own one.
You say that,
And
like,
it plays into the plot, too. It really
Yeah.
does. No, but it was also... We noticed in the credits that it was created by K&B Effects,
Oh,
the
nice.
great effects house of Greg Nicotero and Bergman and all, and that
Who are
just kind
responsible
of
for some of the
fun-
greatest practical special effects in cinema.
Yeah.
And they created the Wafflebot.
Love it.
The
Love
Wafflebot
it.
is to
And you
be
know what?
loved.
The 3D was good.
It was
There's so
good.
many surprises in this movie where you're like, holy shit, like, Danny Trejo has a huge part. It's easily the best thing Danny Trejo has ever done. Easily.
Because again, it's self-aware. It
He's
acknowledges
great
him as
in
a
the
scary
movie.
Mexican dude.
He is great in this movie. The 3D is so much fun, and they play with it
the
in fun
3D
ways.
is one of those things that, like I said, because it's in a self-aware, absurdist fantasy, they take advantage of the 3D in a we know it's a 3D movie you're watching sort of way, where it would be cloying if it wasn't that, but you're laughing because they're doing that.
There's a character in the movie at one point that says, "Oh, you should give your dad this 3D TV. It's going to be amazing." And he points to the screen, and Harold's like, "What the fuck are you pointing at?" It's really funny.
It seems odd that this would be one of my most recommended films from this whole list of great movies that we just did. But it is because they're so rare these days that a comedy can make me repeatedly, a new comedy, mind you, can make me repeatedly laugh out loud.
Studio comedies these days are oftentimes just lackluster, and they're just shitty,
Yeah.
you know. And so it's a
Same
breath of
old-
fresh air to see something like this that is not only really, really funny and genuinely funny with earned laughs, and not just like the equivalent of jump scare type things, you know. Like it's not cheap laughs that you have. Like they
No.
set jokes up, they do long jokes that pay off towards the end of the film. You know, they do a lot of really good stuff. And I don't remember where I was going with that. It made me like the movie, me like movies, movie good.
and keep in mind, this is a very, very rated R type of film. It is not for the younger people at all. It is drug heavy as you get.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a Harold and Kumar film. It's just less of the toilet humor, more of the, I don't know how to say it except smarter drug humor.
Yeah,
You
it is.
know?
It's a smart. It really is a smart comedy.
Yeah.
And some genuine Christmas spirit.
Yeah, it comes around to where you actually feel that the way the best Christmas stuff does, for that nostalgic sense of why you loved Christmas in the first place,
Yeah, right.
you know, and not just so you could own a Wafflebot.
It's awesome that the best film
I
we all
love
saw was a
you,
very Harold and Kumar
Kumar.
Christmas. Oh, it's such a great... Oh, man.
All right, so that was very Harold and Kumar Christmas, and if you've got a 3D TV, it was released that way as well, which is
Do it.
worth it. It is good that way.
Well, I tell you what, guys, and I'm really sorry to say this, but we do not have anything good left necessarily.
Let's run through 'em.
No.
I'm gonna start with the least shitty here, which is
Oh,
gonna
that's
be
a hard call.
which is gonna be The Big Year.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't even go so far as to call The Big Year shitty. It's just not memorable.
It is a completely forgettable nothing of a movie. kind of a deal.
Unless, of course, you are a bird fanatic.
I don't know, because I happen to know a bird fanatic who wasn't real thrilled with this film. But I will, you know what was awesome about watching this movie with my wife is that I was able, because they do bring up a lot of birds by their calls, like, oh, that's the call of a blah, blah, blah. And in so many movies, they just make that shit up. In Journey 2, they just make up the name of a bird that's called a bee eater, who in the movie is trying to eat a bee, and they change the name to some bullshit other bird. And it's
Yeah.
like, why''d you do that? But in this, I checked every single time they mentioned a bird or a bird call. I was like, is that real? Is that really what it is? She's like, yeah. And then I said, because one of my biggest problems, the movie is about...
That means a little more to you than I'm comfortable with.
Well, I'm just
About
saying, like,
bird accuracy.
I'm sorry, but it pisses me
I
off.
hate it when they just wing it.
Oh, I'm gonna peck your eyes out. No, but it's one of those things that bothers me, because it's like, if you're gonna make a movie about three guys that are doing what's called a big year, which is where you try to see and document the more birds than any other birder. And when you have a movie about, like, that's the whole plot, is to find and document
It
birds.
was just the way you said birder. I don't know.
Birder,
Something
yeah.
about it was amusing.
It sounds derogatory.
It was mainly just the way you used it, like it was a real word.
I know,
It is a
right?
real word.
Bird,
God damn it.
surfer, lur.
But yeah, but like, I don't even know what the fuck my point. Fuck you guys. But yeah, it's like I hate it when if that's the whole
ornithological of you.
right. That's the whole plot is that. So if you're just gonna make shit up and the whole movie's about trying to
Like
see birds,
birder?
yeah, okay.
No, birder's totally a real word. We're just like giving Brian shit.
I'm sorry. You're
No,
right.
I mean, he's right. You know, it's good that in a movie that he made a movie about birds. That in this movie about birds, they're accurate in the bird calls and what the birds' names are and all that good stuff.
Because that's the
Unfortunately,
only thing they have to do in the script is come up with the fucking bird names.
I'm sure
the only thing they had to do in the script was read the book and go, "Oh, that's what's supposed to happen."
I'm sure that's what our fans are worried about. Okay, sure, maybe the movie isn't that funny, but do they get the birds' names right? God damn it!
Very important to the birding
fucking,
community, which is bigger than you think.
I fucking hate it when
They're
they
like
get
the
bird names
Illuminati.
all
right.
right,
man.
stop your squawking. All right, the point
Cyrus
is
is going to be really pissed when he goes outside and his car is just covered in bird shit.
Hold
and
on,
by bird
hold
shit,
on.
it's my shit.
Hold on, I'm gonna tweet this.
Oh, lame. But it
Dear
just
God, what is wrong with you?
I know, right?
So basically, this is a movie about three guys that want to see the most birds. And the thing that I had a hard time buying into was the fact that they were willing to, like, go to these ridiculous lengths and sacrifice all this shit. Like, Owen Wilson's in the middle of having sex with his gorgeous wife, and it's like, oh shit, a storm that will push birds into this region. I need to get there before anyone else. And I'm like, fuck you.
Well,
I love movies, and I understand the culture of obsession. Believe me, I do.
Oh, yeah.
But give me a fucking break.
yeah, but that's the thing is you love movies, and if someone
Oh shit,
was
there's
to
a
go-
Blockbuster closing.
If it was going to turn out next week, they were like, oh man, it was a shame because his wife ended up leaving him. I thought they were so close. Like, yeah, but he just wanted to watch movies all the time when she was trying to get him to pay attention to her. Everyone would go, yeah.
Okay, but what that is not is what you would not say about me is, oh, he was in the middle of having sex with his wife and a Blockbuster was closing, so he took off and no, because
No, so he finished real quick and then ran.
Exactly. He
Just
go,
fucking finish.
50% off. Oh.
Just fucking finish for God's sake. That's all
Yeah,
I'm
that's,
asking.
I mean, that should have been encouragement, right? Like, Owen Wilson saw birds! Oh!
Sure. Yeah, but
Yeah.
no. Instead, he just takes off. And
I wish I could say it's the first time that we made orgasm noises on the show.
I know, right?
and it's going to become a recurring theme. But, like, Steve Martin is willing to sink his entire company running off to, like, not only risking his job, but other innocent people who don't give a shit about birds.
Well, he's not. Okay, so I don't necessarily agree with that because there's that point early on. He's like, look, I'm trying to retire from this company. I really want to, and you guys keep going, but we don't know what we're doing. He's like, how is that
Right,
my
but they
problem
specifically
anymore?
talk about a deal that he has set up before he wanted to retire that
Right.
without him is going to sink the company.
Ultimately becomes a character plot point for him, and it is not just dismissed, and that's why I don't have a problem with that, because it is something that the film chooses to deal with the ethics and the morality of that decision versus the obsession, as it does with the other characters. I feel like the only character who's kind of left off the hook for that, if anything, because they don't really explore it to length, is Owen Wilson's character.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the most obsessive out of
He's
them,
just a
and the most
douche.
irrational, but at the end, I didn't feel like we really felt like got inside his head on the whole. Whereas with Jack Black, who is, he's a guy who's like, this might be my only chance. I never made a whole lot of money, but I saved up just enough to do this one thing. You kind of believe him. You kind of see inside his head. You see his own issues between him and his father, who's sick. I mean, I liked that. I liked those character relationships. I liked the fact that it got realistic at points. My only real problem with this film is that it's just not terribly funny at all.
No.
It feels like those... In the 70s, when they were trying to do comedies, take comedic actors and market things as a comedy, and then you'd see it and you go, this is really more of just a character study drama with humorous elements in it, like California Divide with John Belushi and stuff like that.
That's exactly what I was going to say. What?
Oh, you never saw that?
No.
Okay. I forgot how young you are.
Were these the wait? They called them ABC Movie of the Weeks, I think.
No. I mean, there was lots of films that have been this way over the years. We were like, okay, well, that wasn't really how you marketed it, but it wasn't bad as a film. It's just not ultimately all that memorable.
Yeah,
and this suffers from ultimately just not being that
Which is
memorable.
upsetting because it has an amazing cast.
Yeah,
like
right.
outside of its three leads, it has Rashida Jones, Angelica Houston, Tim Blake Nelson shows up, Brian Dennehy, Joel McHale,
Rosamund
I'm a
Pike.
big Rosamund Pike
Kevin
fan.
me
Pollak,
too.
for fuck's sake. Like,
Yeah.
All these people that are really good that they just don't do much with.
Yeah.
Bad as Die Another Day was, Rosamund Pike was so hot in that movie.
That's the gorgeous woman he like stopped midway through.
She's the one who has me excited about John Carter, because I'm like, what? She's one of the she's a badass in that? Oh no, I'm sorry, not John Carter. Wrath of the Titans, which I know will probably be terrible, but she's in it once again, and I'm like, oh, she just.
I don't know. I'm kind of looking
man.
forward to Wrath of the Titans.
Yeah,
I think the trailer's doing its job.
The
That's all I'm
3D
going to
can't
say.
be any worse than. I mean, they had to have learned from Clash of the Titans 3D.
They had to have learned
right?
at least from the backlash against
Oh,
Clash of
God.
the Titans.
Hey, if Harold and Kumar can do good 3D.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying. That is our concern, dude.
All right,
right.
so that was the big year.
What's next?
Next is a movie that I will freely admit I probably hate more for what it is than for what it is, which is the remake of The Thing. Well, I'm sorry, the prequel to The Thing.
Yeah. Now, their biggest mistake here, and I know you're going to argue with me on that, but was that they just called it The Thing.
That was a mistake.
It led to
Definitely
some real misconceptions about what this was supposed to be at all. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking even doing that. I mean, actually, even after seeing it, and I did not hate this movie. In fact, I even kind of liked it. I thought I was mad that they chose to just call it that. It's insulting almost to do that.
It is insulting.
To just like, oh, we'll just stamp out that old movie or hope that anyone looking for The Thing will accidentally watch ours instead.
Yeah, that's some Lucas shit. Don't do that. But okay, here's my biggest problem. Obviously, okay, if you've seen 1981's The Thing, or 1982's The Thing, congratulations, we can be friends. And secondly, it is that this is a movie that not only had some of the greatest practical effects in horror of the time, but one of the things that really made John Carpenter's The Thing stand out was its cast, was its very diverse group. You know what it reminds me of? Is Ridley Scott's Alien, where you have a group of people who are all very distinct individuals, in this place of peril against this monster, and you like all of these guys for different reasons in different ways, and you don't really want to see any of them die. The prequel has all these guys that, I'm sorry, I'm going to sound racist against white people, they all look the same. They're all Nordic dudes with beards.
Can you be racist against your own race?
I just did.
Okay.
I don't know how, but it happened.
You're self-hating whitey.
Exactly. To the point where I was like, I don't give a shit if any of these guys die.
They do.
I can't
They
tell
really
them
do.
apart.
They run together. I think they introduced them all maybe one time in the film, and they all have Nordic sounding names, and it's like.
And they introduced them in the scene where they're all sitting together.
Well, and now to
it's
be
like there's going
fair,
to be a test later.
they kill them off so fast that it really doesn't matter who they are in
But
that
see, but
context.
that's a problem.
The majority, not to me, when the majority of the film is following the very few survivors. It's really just a bloodbath early on that gets most of these guys out of the way. The tension doesn't matter. It's the fact that, oh my god, what the fuck is going on? And then there's a point to where we can follow the characters who we do know by now.
I don't disagree with you that what's going on, but that to me is just cheap. Like, really, like, it's not, you're right, the tension doesn't matter, because we don't care, and they're just, it's literally just in there to be a bloodbath at the first act of a modern horror film.
I don't see the problem. There's tension because we've just set up there's a monster that is fucking can go anywhere and kill anyone at great speeds, and now that that's over with, we've seen that, and some, I thought, impressive effects worth, even with practical mixed with CG. Then we get to the actual tension sequences, which is following the characters Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Joel Edgerton, these guys we actually do know and care a little bit about, if for nothing else, because we like the actors playing the roles.
See, I'll say you do kind of care about Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who is clearly supposed to be the Kurt Russell of this film, and I'm fine with it being a woman, and I'm fine with it being Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I like a lot. It just the biggest problem is that there are plot points that make no sense. Like the plot point, the big scene trying to figure out, who is the Thing, that is clearly the callback to, the blood boiling situation from the original. This one is like who has the best dentist?
Yeah, it's
and completely the concept is that the Thing can duplicate people, but it can't duplicate anything inorganic.
Right.
So if they have fillings in their teeth, then they're okay. But because the Thing couldn't recreate that.
Recreate that.
Except that you don't know who had fillings to begin with.
Well,
true, and it seems to conveniently move on from clothing,
Yeah.
which I don't think is organic most of the time.
Just play- again-
and they're all wearing clothes. God damn it!
Play by your own rules. That's all we ever ask.
I am not going to argue with you that this is far from a perfect film. That much is very, very true. But the hatred and the sheer vitriol that has been directed at it, I am sorry, but I know we got a big argument about this after the film. I can't help but insist that at least half of that comes because of the fact that you love the original as much and as truly as you do.
Yeah, I love movies that are good.
No,
Yeah, I
the
like the
original.
specifically.
And I do. I love the original. And I'm
don't-
not opposed to going back to that story. And I like the idea that this picks up, like...
I like the fact that it tells the Norwegian
ties
story.
in, that it tells the story of the Norwegians and the very, like, if it had been a better film, I think that last sequence where they go through and tie all the links together to what we've seen at the beginning of Carpenter's thing would have been instead of me going, would have been, holy shit, that's awesome.
We would have been standing and applauding. And I think it's, and I hate to say it, Cyrus, but that's the easy thing to say against people that hate
I
this
know
movie.
it is, but the more I think about it, and the more we've talked about this film, the more I go, you're not giving me anything that isn't
I am
that.
giving you stuff. And I mean, you don't agree with it, and that's fine, but that doesn't mean I'm not giving you arguments against it. First of all, I think the CG is terrible.
See,
Yeah,
I
the
don't
effects
agree.
are awful.
I don't
really,
agree.
really
And that's
don't
fine,
agree.
but that doesn't mean I'm not giving you a reason why I dislike the movie.
No,
I
I'm-
think the CG is awful.
I guess maybe I don't agree with your reasonings, and then when we start going into it, I've always felt like you end up falling back on going, yeah, but in the original thing, I'm like, no, stop talking about the original thing.
I don't think...
I think that it was a very different type of film as well. This is definitely more of an action film, and that was more of a suspense film. And I think in that context, this functions as well as as a film like this can.
See,
really.
but and the thing is, like, if I had felt like there was any element of this movie that had been done well, then I was already on board with it. Like, I love the original, but I was on board with seeing a story about the Norwegians. Like, I don't understand how I'm just hating on it because of the original if I wanted to see it because I love the
Well,
original.
look, we can't get into a meta argument about like this particular aspect of why we disagree because it's pointless. But we can agree that it is certainly not anywhere near a perfect film. I called it just barely good film. Like, I did enjoy it. I would tell people who are fans of the thing, look, let go of the fact it's nowhere near as good as the original thing and just watch it as a horror movie, and it's entertaining on that basis. But that's as good as it gets. And I think we can at very least agree that it doesn't even come close to quality of the original John Carpenter's film.
I would agrry with that, and I would argue that it's not a very good film on its own. But that's
no,
as
I think
much
there
as
are
I'm
big
willing.
plot problems with it, and obviously we're going to disagree on the effects. But what killed me about the effects is that they shot them all practical, and then went back and changed them to CG, and that just
Why would you
kills
bother?
my soul. In fact, our good friend Peter Hall was going through the disc for his review on movies.com and was going through the commentary, and I forget who it is on the commentary. I think it's one of the producers and the writer-director or something of that nature. And they're like, yeah, we did it practical, but the decision was made that it didn't look good enough or whatever, so we went back and did it with CG, and it's almost like it's like it's like, who were these people that made these decisions?
They're
It's
passing
just
the buck on to somebody that doesn't exist.
The
It's
same
like,
people who did it to.
I mean, there are like 13 producers on a movie this big, or the studio. Like,
presumably
it very well
the
could
same
have been
people
the studio
who did
decision.
it to the werewolf. With the
Oh,
same
and
exact,
Wolfman.
with the Wolfman,
Yeah,
the same
yeah.
exact.
Yeah,
thing happened.
Universal killed that. so.
Yeah,
Well, and
but except
the-
here, like I said, I didn't mind that. And be clear, there is a lot of practical left in here. I did, in fact, look this up myself, and a lot of the practical work is what you're still seeing. It's been, but a lot of it was replaced as well. So it wasn't completely replaced with CG. Just some of it was. Just throwing that out
I
there.
think it's a large amount of it that was.
I'm watching it. I go, you know what? I can see a lot of this that's still practical, and it looks good. I don't know. That's me. That's my opinion. I thought. it was fun.
We're gonna agree to disagree.
I think
on
that's
this one.
and one of those another things that I go, look, the stuff that it does here isn't the same style of things that it did in the original. They were like, we need to take it and make it bigger and different, and I agree, they totally do. And for me, it worked, but it didn't look like the thing in the first one.
I don't want it to. I just want it to not look like shit. And I thought it looked like shit.
I didn't think it did. I enjoyed it. So anyway, that was the thing. Take whichever side you want on it,
Oh God!
The right one.
which would be mine.
And
should
the
be ours.
grand finale of this show.
Yeah,
which
because here's one we can agree on.
I don't think
absolutely.
any of us are gonna say one thing in defense of this movie. And again, I've said it before, and I will say it again. I am really, really sorry if you are a Twilight fan, because you're mentally deranged. But we're going to talk about Twilight Breaking Dawn part Who Gives a Shit.
Oh my god.
I will like it.
Shut up! No, you don't!
I kind of do.
No, you don't.
I kind of do.
How? What? What is
Because
there to like
it's
here?
so terrible.
No.
And seriously, there is a part of just sitting in a theater and watching the last 40 minutes or so of this film just going, I cannot fucking believe someone put this on film and put it in front of my face.
Maybe the last 30 minutes, which goes so outrageous, even though if you've, a lot of people already know the story just in the report because the books have been out for so long. It's so incredibly terrible writing that there was no way anyone could film this. Not even Bill Condon, who's a decent director, who got assigned to this.
Good director.
There was nothing you could do to salvage it at all, and he does not do anything to salvage it at all. But it is that ridiculous. You can laugh in that aspect, I suppose. But that's not mentioning that there's a whole hour of watching a Lifetime special about weddings.
Oh, God, yeah. The
entire
first
front
hour.
end.
A wooden, deflated nothing of a... Oh, God.
There's absolutely nothing.
The wedding is a good 30 minutes. A goodly 30 minutes.
The wedding alone.
Yeah, the wedding alone.
It's weird because it's like you weren't satisfied just being a terrible movie. On top of that, you have to be a boring movie, too. Yeah. Like, you found the one thing you might have done well about the first few Twilight movies, which is that they ended in somewhat of a timely manner. And you fucked that up, too!
Yeah.
Well, because they were like, we can stretch this out for more dollars and divide this book up into 2 movies that totally does not deserve to be into 2 movies.
There is no reason this needs to be 2 movies.
The last Harry Potter? Sure.
Yes.
That's plot heavy as hell. There's so much stuff going on.
3,000-page book.
Doing 2 movies made sense. This... When you realize that, like I said, the first 30 minutes, the wedding. Next 30 minutes, the honeymoon.
The sex, yeah.
And there's nothing, it barely even gets into the fact that they're fucking vampires. It might as well
and
be.
she is fucking a vampire.
Fair enough. There are people just doing normal stuff that happens when you get married, and it's totally dull and uninteresting on every level. And to make it worse, Taylor Lautner is just scowling around and being with that
demented Eskimo butt baby.
That fucking voice of his kills me.
Takes his shirt off within the first 30 seconds of the film.
We timed it. We put the timer on, and before the first 30 seconds were up, he was shirtless.
Yeah.
What? Who gets mad and takes their shirt off?
It's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh!
I absolutely want to kill you.
He was jording around.
Yeah, the fucking jorts, man.
All right, so these movies are all bad. That's no duh. Of course they are.
No, they really are.
This is the worst of them. This is the worst.
Easily.
Yeah. There's
yes.
I mean, it is because of how boring it is.
It's... Brian's going to get really, really mad at me when I say this, but
I love it.
To me, it really is kind of like, really dumb, over-the-top action movies from the 80s, where like something like Dead Heat, where like electricity revives chickens in a deli, and you're just like, what the fuck is happening here? Like, the last 30 minutes of this film are enjoyable to me on a what the fuck is happening in front of my face type.
However, Dead Heat is not sold to tweens as the prototype for romance!
That is a valid argument.
No, but it fucking should be. I'm just saying.
I'm trying to look for the metaphor.
No, seriously,
there.
I totally understand. Brian and probably Cyrus are not going to agree, but I really do. Like, I kind of enjoy it on that, like, this is ridiculous, and I'm having fun with how ridiculous this is.
I'm in envy of you that you're the kind of person that can take a hammer to the scrotum for 2 fucking hours and enjoy it.
Let's be clear.
Your threshold of pain is admirable, sir.
We are talking specifically about the last 40 minutes of this film.
Like I said, maybe 30 minutes, once again.
No,
can I spoil it?
The last part is a lot longer than you think it is.
Is it? Maybe just at that point I had just given up and my brain had retreated down my spinal column.
Okay, wait.
I don't have any problem.
Can I just say we're going to spoil it, and if
it's
any...
the very end of the show, so you can tune out now.
Okay, I'm gonna... Well, first of all, if you're listening to the show and you're a Twilight fan, why?
Why are you listening?
Secondly, if you're a Twilight fan, you've already fucking seen the movie. And thirdly, fuck Twilight. So I'm going to spoil it. I'm letting you know ahead of time. If you don't want to be spoiled, Breaking Dawn Part 1, turn it off. But 2 things that made me want to kill myself watching this movie. The first was the talking werewolves.
That's such a hilarious...
They talk while they don't... Like, it's not like a Disney film where, like, their mouths move.
No, because they're speaking telepathically.
They're speaking telepathically as werewolves who are... Okay, first of all, the design of the werewolves, they're just wolves. Why do they have to be CG?
They
Does
could've
the,
just
does
gone
the
and
director
filmed
not know
wolves.
that wolves
'cause
fucking
they're-
exist?
Well, because they're oversized. They're very much bigger than normal.
Luckily, we don't have any camera tricks to make regular-sized wolves.
Oh
look
yeah,
big.
no.
fair
Peter
enough.
Jackson didn't invent a new technology for fucking forced perspective that you could have cribbed from. No, that's true.
Because then they would have to have a wolf wrangler.
Ugh,
And nobody
yes.
wants that.
So
Yeah,
anyway,
clearly they didn't have enough money to hire one of
You
those.
should have called Sarah Palin.
so the Pixar wolves are running around this lumber mill, and they
No,
start.
Pixar does much better.
Yes, they do, and they start communicating to each other through this telepathy as fucking wolves. And I'm like, if this is such an important conversation that we have to have right at this moment,
Shouldn't we be shirtless in jorts?
just make them human. Why
Yeah.
do they need to have this conversation as wolves?
At least have them talk more like wolves. Like, you smell that butt?
yeah.
That's some good butt.
I would have been okay with it. Or like they're arguing and then one of them's like, ooh, shiny red ball, and like runs off, something like that. But
All right, before we get to the second point,
Wait a minute, do you smell Liam Neeson? I'm hungry.
I just want to say that Brian had no idea what was going to happen at the end of this film.
I did
correct?
not see this in theaters by design. I
Okay,
stayed the
but
fuck away.
and you hadn't heard anything
I
about
didn't
the end of
know.
the film. So Brian has no idea. So we're very, very clear about explaining to him like the werewolf imprinting process, which, if you don't know, is essentially
Okay.
just falling in love.
Yeah.
Okay, but
Love at first sight.
before we get too,
involuntary love at first sight.
before we get too much into that, let's point out the fact that this is a bullshit change to the already bullshit rules that are just completely made up. The Stephanie Meyer's like, oh, establish werewolf canon. I'm gonna bullshit a new rule, and then I'm gonna make up something that counteracts. Like she started writing and didn't stop, never looked back, and just kept coming up with new things that are all bullshit.
Well, yeah, it's what Truman Capote said. That's not writing, it's just typing.
Yeah,
And that's
she just keeps
exactly what
going.
she does as a writer.
It's like she's
because
never-
there's stuff that makes absolutely no sense when it comes to its conclusion. You're like, how does you think that makes people feel better? Even from what I've been told, even a large portion of the fans of Twilight just went, what the fuck, when it comes to this story element in the last book.
So yes, let's go into what happens with
Because
this imprinting
humans should,
shit.
and this is the great thing. Like, we explain that imprinting is this big werewolf thing, and you should know about it. The only werewolf we're following in the last, 15 minutes is pretty much Jacob. All the other werewolves are outside getting pissed. So, there are only so many female characters here, and it's still, it's just such an out there thing that it never even dawned on Brian. And that's not an insult at all. That's just pointing out how fucking ridiculous this plot point is. But, and real quick moment to make fun of the name. I don't even know if we've said this. Bella's pregnant with the vampire child.
which is all like, what? That's not supposed to happen.
Which is killing her from the
Make
inside.
this shit up as we go along.
So she's about ready to give birth at 3 months, even though she looks like an AIDS victim at Auschwitz.
She
And
looks terrible.
She looks ridiculously awful. Anyway,
Yeah.
she has decided to name the child. I don't know if they know it's a girl or not, but it's going to be a girl, and they name it after her mother and Edward's mother. Her mother's name is Renee. Edward's mother's name is Esme. So of course she comes up with the name Renesmee. I'm not even shitting you. There's an entire conversation about how this name is coming out, and it's like nobody tells her that it's the stupidest fucking thing.
Suddenly,
in the world.
Gwyneth Paltrow doesn't have the worst named child anymore.
No,
Congratulations, Apple.
Apple seems really cute in the face of Renesmee. So at any rate,
Is that an ingredient on shampoo? What is that?
it's no fucking idea.
It's new invigorating Renesmee.
So Renesmee is born, and Edward has to bite into her belly to
Has to
get,
C-section
Yeah,
with
has
his
to
teeth.
C-section it out
Yeah.
with his teeth.
Which I thought that was the crazy thing you guys were referring to.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that was the height of. I thought that was going to be it.
At that
It's like,
point, you're
no,
already
no, just
staring at the
wait.
screen going like, what the fuck?
Yeah, so
But-
that, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe that takes your attention away from that whole imprinting conversation we had to stop and have. Because the big thing that happens is that Jacob comes back into the house, and someone is holding Renesmee, and he imprints on the baby.
He falls in love with a goddamn baby.
Yeah, he goes
infant.
into a. All right, so everybody remember the original Wayne's World when what's his name? Not Wayne, but
Garth.
Garth sees the girl he falls in love with, and he hears Dreamweaver, and they
Yeah.
go into this
Yeah.
fantasy sequence.
It's essentially the same
It's
thing.
the same thing. They do that, except you're supposed to take it seriously and think that it's romantic.
They
and
just
awesome.
took Dreamweaver out.
Yeah.
Also, it's a CG baby.
Except
Oh,
with
yeah.
a baby.
It's a
who
creepy-ass CG
then
baby.
becomes, I guess, his vision of that she'll turn into a hot chick at some point.
Oh, yeah. Like, he sees their whole life together.
This I want to reiterate this, and this is all I'm going to say. This is a book for teenage girls.
Right. Wherein a
Grown-
17 to 18-year-old man
Falls in love with
falls
a
in
baby.
love with
With an
a
infant. Just born.
several minute born child.
From the vagina, he was just trying to
And
get
you're actually
into
going to sit
himself.
there and
well,
tell
from
me...
the stomach because of the
Well, fair
vampire
enough.
C-section.
And the
Yeah,
people
yeah,
that give me
fair
shit are going to sit there and tell me this is just a harmless, nothing piece of fiction.
No,
I'm like,
I can top that. I can top that about why this is not a
Please,
harmless piece
please.
of fiction. And this was more egregious apparently in the original book, but it's still pretty bad in the movie when after they have sex for the first time and she is beaten up and bruised and it's the next day and he's like, I'm so sorry. I don't know. I couldn't control myself. And she's like, no, it's not you. It's me. Gah!
Yeah.
It's like every abuse scene you've ever heard of.
it's the
played
burning
out
bed in a
sympathetically.
Twilight movie, for fuck's sake.
Oh, are you serious? Stephanie Myers, are you serious? You know what? You should just be arrested.
She
End of
has
the story.
weaponized a woman's sexuality against her
Yeah.
in 7 or whatever many books. And I'm sorry, but that is evil! Like,
It's-
this person is evil!
Between this and Katherine Heigl films, art for woman is turned against woman at this point. You know, I don't know. It's like we've got the misogynist new century where women go, "Yay, women are terrible." We should just take it. I don't even have words.
I want everything
Oh,
about
man.
Twilight stricken from the record of human existence.
And you know what? We
I
still got
can't
one
wait
more
for
to
the
go.
next one.
No!
Oh, and did I mention that Lionsgate just pretty much offered Stephanie Meyer a blank check
Yep.
if she
They
writes another
sure
Twilight
did.
novel?
Because why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
How
It is a
the-
license to print money.
It is. It absolutely is. I mean, you can get mad at Lionsgate if you want. That's just smart business. Like, I'm sorry.
No, I understand Lionsgate's point of view. I guess. I mean, ultimately, it's like that whole argument when you look at the way corporations are run. If you treat them in the terms of a person, they're a psychotic psychologically, and that is psychotic thinking in that way. It is completely
I was so happy when
self-involved to
Yeah.
go like, yay, we'd make a lot of money from this. Yeah, but you'd really be hurting people by continuing to propagate this sort of, what? Did he say, shut up, we're talking about money.
when Summit went down, I thought that would be the end of this shit. I really did. And I can't tell you how sad I am that Lionsgate is picking up the torch and running with it.
Wow.
Well, she hasn't agreed to write anything yet, so we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, I'm sure her artistic integrity will win out in that fucking argument.
Oh,
I don't know.
well.
It really depends on whether or not her boyfriend dumps her.
It's the only thing we got left here, other than like complete exhaustion and fear that the human race is dying.
Oh, giveaway!
It's a giveaway.
We got a giveaway.
We got one.
Oh, Brian
come on,
is dead.
Brian.
I'm sorry. I told you this is why I wanted to do this movie last. I feel like I just had an aneurysm talking about this fucking movie.
Well, you are bleeding out of your ears a little
Yes.
bit.
Oh shit. Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
Crap. I thought that was just the gin. All right.
Might be a combination of the two.
It could be. But yes, we do
Let's
have one
try
more
that-
giveaway.
And
Giveaway!
And this is actually a fun one because what we're giving away is a completely mysterious grab bag from Warner Archive, which, if you're not familiar with Warner Archive, this is a really great service that basically takes the back catalog of these really, some great and some just fun Warner Brothers movies that haven't gotten their own individual release because there's just not that much interest in them, and creates like a printed on demand service where you say, I want that movie. Warner Brothers makes you a DVD of the movie and sends it to you. And you know, it's a process that actually causes these films to cost a little bit more than a regular DVD.
Oh yeah.
So what?
And there's always hidden gems in
Oh,
there.
totally.
Stuff that maybe the whole establishment, the whole community of film lovers did not agree on, but there are ones that pop up in there all the time. You're like, oh, what are you kidding me? Why aren't they doing a wide release of that? That's a great movie.
Great example of that is Freebie and the Bean, which is
Oh.
an old school Warner Brothers kind of buddy cop type movie with oh god, I'm gonna
Alan
Elliot
Arkin.
Gould and Alan Arkin.
Or
and
the Quatermass experiment?
Yes.
Yeah, Quatermass.
Which
There's
was
some
another
real-
one you were like, why would you just do that as a direct?
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
But there it is.
what we're doing is we're giving you kind of a random sampler pack, kind of like the Star Trek Next Generation, of Warner Brothers archive titles. So we're not going to tell you what's included in it, but if you win, you get there's 3 of them. You get all 3 of them.
Yeah, you'll be one winner for this one. And the code word to send me when you see me write up, I guess I'll write like something along the lines of like Warner Archive Pack or something. You'll know it when you see it. Is
Freebie.
freebie. That's a good one.
Sure.
Yep.
Because it's free and you're referencing freebie.
See?
in the
See how I
beginning.
did that?
Yeah, that was nice.
That
Like
was-
But I just want to note really quick, like, they are more expensive. They usually run about $20, and you can get them on Amazon. And I don't know about you guys, but like as as a collector, like, Amazon almost always has the cheapest prices, and I've kind of gotten used to only buying things on Amazon.
Right.
Don't in this particular case. If there are Warner Archive titles you want, you can go directly to Warner's site, and you can sign up for their newsletter. They often run deals where they'll do, like, 5 for $50 and stuff like that. And usually several packs, but the price will go down significantly. And you can order directly from Warner Archive, and they will send you the discs.
Yeah,
if you're interested in these titles, that's really the best way to get
all the time
them.
I'll see on Amazon titles that are currently at Warner at their new price of like $19, and on Amazon they're selling for $35. And you're like, why is that? Because they figured a lot of people who only shop on Amazon won't even bother to go look anywhere else. They'll go like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's the price, so I'm going to pay it. Oh, well. Well, that's not the price, and we've got some,
we'll probably be doing more of these grab bags in the future as well. So if you are interested in this and you want to keep listening to remote viewing like you should be anyway, we will more than likely have more of these grab bags in the future.
And in fact, if you are the winner of this, make sure to send us an email describing, give us a little blurb about what you thought about each one of them.
Yeah, we would love to know what you think.
Be curious to know. Hell, we might even, if you are linguistically talented enough, perhaps we will even read it out on the show.
We really should we should read fan mail. We should get fan mail, and then we should read it on the air.
Hey, you guys should send us fan mail. And speaking of messages that you should send, you should all send Corey messages demanding more remote viewing.
Yes, if you would like it every week.
Yep, that's what it's going to take, folks.
We wouldn't mind.
We want your Mr. Smith to go to Washington, and by Washington we mean Corey's messaging service.
Also, make sure there's in the group section of the site, there is a remote viewing group where I put in updates about the contests, if there's any changes, who's won what, so you can see, so you don't just randomly send out emails. And by all means, go on there and leave comments as well, and say what you thought about the show or whatever you want.
Yeah, I know the three of us are all really good about checking the page, and we want to hear from you, and we'll respond to you. And this is not just a one-way podcast. Like, we want you guys to be involved and have your voices heard, as long as you're not stupid.
Indeed.
In fact, if we get to the point where we're once a week, we'll be able to do more. Some of the requests I've gotten, why don't you do this kind of special thing? It's because we haven't had time doing it every other week.
Exactly.
If we were every week, we could have special segments of focus, like, all right, we're pulling an old classic out that we just personally love and want to talk about, or what have you. So, anyway.
So mobilize, Internet Force.
And that's it for this week's remote viewing.
Hope you enjoyed it, everybody.
I know I enjoyed it, except for having to listen to y'all be wrong about the thing for like a half hour or however long it was.
You guys go rent the thing and tell us what you thought.
As soon as these mics go off, we're gonna throw down.
It's gonna rumble. All right, guys. Well, how do we sign off? It's different every week now.
I don't know. Do we have an actual? We should come up with a sign. You know, we should have our intrepid fans maybe try and help us come up with a sign off.
How we should sign off.
Yeah, because I'm just gonna keep saying "hook to the hoo-ha."
Well, you know what?
If you haven't seen the Mutilator, that's not gonna make a lot of sense.
You know what? I've said it before, and I'll say it again just so we end this on a good note. And I'm just gonna say, stay tuned, everybody.